Hey, good morning.
Morning, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm well, just finished some morning errands.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Who do I have here this morning?
Jaquan Winters.
Hey, Jaquan. Very nice to speak with you again. I'm going to give just a couple of more minutes for people to log in, but I do want to be mindful of our time, so I appreciate you joining me.
We have one new person. There's one more right there.
There we go. Good morning. Hello. So I realize that some people are jumping on from their workspace, maybe on their lunch break or something like that. So I'm going to probably mute everybody except for the Q&A section towards the end, but please feel free to use the chat function. I think for most of you, it's going to be at the bottom of your screen, like in the black bar. And so I'm going to pop a quick message in there and you should see it flash. So feel free to use that. Um, I want to make sure that you guys can see it. So just a little bit of housekeeping. If you're just joining, giving everybody a couple of minutes to log on. Like I said, I know that there are a few people that were going to be joining us from their workspace. Maybe they had to pop down to the Starbucks. I want to certainly cut out as much background noise so that everyone can hear. I just popped a message and Jaquan looks like he responded back. So hopefully you have like a little flash that's happening down at the bottom of your screen or wherever your management tools are. But I think on Zoom, they're typically on the bottom. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and get started in the interest of time. Thank you so much for joining me. I am Danielle Butler, and I just want to welcome you to How to Write and Self-Publish Your Children's Book. Can everyone hear me okay? If you'll just pop, like a number or a letter or something in the group chat just to let me know that you can hear me without any trouble. And that you can see my screen. You should see some little kids reading at the bottom, a nice kite. Let me know if you can hear me and see me okay just by dropping something in the chat. All right, awesome. Looks like we're on the move. So again, welcome to How to Write and Self-Publish Your Children's Book. I am Danielle Butler, and so I'm just going to spend a little bit of time with you. I want to go ahead and move forward just in the interest of time to make sure that everyone can get the information and then get back to their day. So just to tell you a little bit about who I am a self-published author. I have written and released 5 books, 3 of which have been in the children's book space. I'm a mother. I am also a former educator, and I am a certified professional development coach. And what I do is I use all of that experience, all of that information, put it together in a pot and make a nice soup that I like to call writing and self-publishing your own children's book. For me, because I am a mom, I spend a lot of time reading with my children. When I was a teacher, I spent a lot of time teaching reading, particularly sharing with students books that had to go with our lessons. Reading was just a fundamental part and has been a fundamental part of my life. And then the professional development piece that I have begun to work on is really towards helping others, particularly authors, to craft their best story, to craft and tell their stories and share them with others. So I use all of that to create what I hope is a platform that allows you to learn something that you hadn't learned before. In 2017, I did release my children's book. So I published my first book back in 2014, but I didn't enter the children's space until last year. But once I hit the niche, it really resonated with me and it gave me an opportunity to produce quite a bit. So I was able to self-publish 3 books last year, in addition to books that I've worked with clients on. And all of them have been released in 2017. So Zoe's Bun was my first one, which came out in March. And then Zoe Gets a Brother, I released that one in May. And then my latest book, Zachary Goes to School, I did release in August of 2017. So I'm pushing forward with those and just getting the Adventures of Zoe and Zachary series off the ground. So let's talk about our expectations for today. I'd love to know what you're hoping to gain out of this course. It is interactive, so feel free to use the chat. Like I said, I'm going to have everybody on mute just because of background noise and things like that. But if you wouldn't mind, just kind of share with me, maybe if there's something in particular that you are hoping to learn or hoping to gain out of this, I would love to know. And while you guys are putting that in the chat box, just to share a little bit about the things that we're going to talk about, we are going to talk very, very heavily about choosing your topic and your audience, looking at choosing your voice and your style. So how are you going to get that information over to your audience? Uh-oh, sorry, I went forward too fast. And then we're also going to talk about what the self-publishing process really looks like. So let's go ahead and dive in, since I'm clicking screens, obviously, and moving ahead of myself, and talk about choosing your topic. I don't know how many on here have already chosen your topics, but how many of you have thought through and said, hey, you know what, this is the type of book that I want to write, or I want my book to be about a specific thing already. I know that Jaquan is on here, and I spoke with you a couple of weeks ago, so I know that your topic is already chosen. But anybody else already have your topic laid out? Okay, awesome. Awesome. All right, cool. Let's keep moving and talk about choosing our topic. So in terms of writing children's books, there are so many ways that we can go. Now, I know that for me, I wrote a story years ago. It was called Zoe's Dance, right? And it was a book, if you could call it that. And my daughter was about 2, but it was more like a short poem. I worked at a dance studio, and so it allowed me to be able to capture what I was seeing in her personality at the time. But needless to say, I did not do anything with that book except for type it up. Okay. And then Zoe's Bun, when I began to really think through the Adventures of Zoe and Zachary series, I wrote down a lot of titles that I was hoping to cover and that I thought would be good. And ultimately decided that Zoe's Bun was the one that I would move forward with for what I was experiencing. And I realized that it was likely the same for others. So at the start of 2017, I don't know if you all noticed, but there were a lot of books that came out that were about hair and appearance, particularly natural hair. I know that Willow Smith had come out with that song years ago, I whip my hair back and forth. And so then there was this flood to hit the market with information that presented, natural hair in a really positive light, which was excellent. And my daughter had an afro, and I loved it. I love to see those wild curls everywhere, but she was not necessarily a fan of it. And so I knew that for me, if I wanted her to do something, of course, I couldn't say flat out, hey, you should do that. I had to come up with a way for her to be comfortable with who she was and what she wanted to do, what she wanted to accomplish. And so I knew that if I was experiencing that same thing, that other people probably were as well. So I took the time to move forward with that book because that's where I was and what was relevant to me at that moment. All right. So in looking at choosing your topic or the purpose of your book, many people write books for different reasons. Okay. Uh-oh, my screen is moving a little slow. Sorry about that. So why are you writing your children's book? I want you to think about it. What do you want your book to be about and why? Are you looking to teach a lesson? Are you looking to celebrate something special? For me, when I wrote Zoe Gets a Brother, it was a celebration, right? Because Zoe was transitioning from being an only child to being an older sibling. So what was that process like? I wanted to teach her some of the things that she could expect, but also to celebrate that transition in her life. Maybe you want to write your book to activate imagination. One of my favorite books is There's a Dragon in My Closet. It came out last year as well. And it really just kind of activates the imagination and gets you thinking, what if there really was a dragon in your closet? Perhaps your children's book is going to expose your reader to a different place culture or tradition, right? Perhaps you're sharing your religion with someone. Perhaps you're sharing maybe one of your family's traditions that you do for a holiday. How do you all celebrate holidays? So I want you to think about that. What is the topic of your book? What is your purpose going to be about? Maybe you're going on a journey or an adventure. We know that books are the portal to the world. They help us to see and know things, particularly children's books. They allow children to explore places and things and ideas that they may not necessarily explore in their regular day-to-day life. And then finally, maybe your book is just sharing history. Maybe you are teaching about someone in the past that has done something great, or you are chronicling a story of something that has happened or transpired that you want to be able to look back on. So that is my first question for you today is, what is your topic? Have you thought about what you want your book to be about and why? And you don't have to answer that. It's just something that I want you to begin thinking about, because that is the first thing for writing your children's book. When you're looking at writing a children's book, what am I going to write about? What is it that I'm hoping that my book is going to accomplish? Why do I want to write this book? If it's teaching a lesson, why is it necessary for me to teach this lesson? Am I teaching manners, how to say please and thank you? Am I teaching a lesson on how to make a meal? Am I teaching a lesson just about friendship or about family? So wanting you to really just think that through. What do you want your book to be about and why? Now, after looking and choosing your topic and the purpose of your children's book, it's going to be important to think about your audience. Who are your readers? Now, I know that some of you are probably thinking, Danielle, that is a really dumb or even a redundant question, but it's not. When you write your children's book, yes, it's in the children's book space, but children's books aren't just for children. Okay, when you are writing your children's book, it is imperative that you consider your audience very carefully. Your audience, who is your book for? Your audience could be for children specifically. Maybe it's specifically for boys. Maybe it is specifically a book for girls. Okay, if your book is for children, what's the age range that you're looking at for your book? You want to consider these things. Is the book for a 2-year-old? Because that 2-year-old's book is going to be very different than a book that, say, you write for an 8-year-old. And that book that you write for an 8-year-old child is going to differ for one that you're writing for perhaps an 11-year-old preteen or prepubescent kid, right? And then perhaps your children's book isn't really for the children at all. Maybe it's for parents, right? Maybe there's a mom or a dad that is going to be using your book to introduce a tricky topic or subject at home. Maybe the book is about bullying, and so it gives them an opportunity to go through that. I know that I have one client that frankly just doesn't know how to talk, about the birds and the bees. So, okay, who's it going to be for, right? Maybe it's an opening and an opportunity for the parents to breach that subject that could be otherwise difficult. Maybe your book is for teachers. So I taught school for over 6 years, and there was a book for everything. If there wasn't one, then I was mad about it, and I probably wasn't going to teach it, because I wanted it to be a book that was tangible for the kids, not just the textbook portion of it. So maybe I was teaching the frog life cycle, which is super popular in 3rd grade science, right? A science textbook can be boring for a kid, but if I could find a children's book that would help me to explain that process, or the life cycle and metamorphosis of a butterfly, then how much more engaged were the students going to be? As a teacher, I often use the book as my hook into the lesson. So instead of me going to the board and saying, all right, here we go, class, I'm getting ready to teach you about the life cycle of a butterfly, I may sit all of my students down on the carpet and say, hey, let's do some reading today. And then we read a story that talks about this butterfly that makes the beautiful transition or the awkward transition from being a caterpillar. And so as a teacher, I was using children's books as a hook. So that children's book may not, again, be specifically for children. It may be geared towards teachers to help them with a particular topic or subject. And then there are those books that are for doctors or for therapists and other professionals. Oftentimes we think about children's books limitedly in such a space where we say, okay, this book is about counting, it's about numbers, it's about shapes, it's about dancing or being happy or whatever, when in all actuality, there are other professionals, social workers, therapists, doctors, that are using these books as a way to bridge a conversation with their clients or with their patients. Maybe they're using the book to help a child identify a feeling that they otherwise couldn't have put words to. So when you're writing your book, perhaps you want it to be used by the guidance counselor in the school that's helping the students think about careers and things like that. So as you are choosing your audience for your book, I want you to think very carefully what's happening in their world, okay? Because you're going to craft your book, you're going to choose your topic and the purpose, you're going to craft it around what's happening in their world, okay? You want it to be something that they could relate to. You want it to be something that really helps them, okay? What ages are your students that you're working with, or the children that you're hoping to reach? What are the teachers, the parents, the doctors, the therapists, and the other professionals trying to accomplish? All right. So let's look at some of the things that we need to consider when we're choosing our audience. All right. So the things that I want you to consider about your audience are their attention span, first and foremost. Okay. So you see this little elf character. It started off to say attention deficit. Hey, look, butterfly. There is nothing like a kid's attention span, particularly if they are a younger kid full of energy. All right. The second thing that you want to consider about your audience, even if you are working with crafting a book for a teacher or for a professional, is the reading level. Are the students going to be, or the children, expected to read the book on their own, or are they going to need some assistance? Okay. Is it a book that they can sit down and read by themselves? You see the little girl, she's up in the corner and she's reading confidently by herself. She's got 3 books ready to go. And then the last thing to consider about your audience is their area of interest and fascination. Again, a 5-year-old's thought process and the things that are fascinating for them are going to be very different from a 12-year-old's thought process and the things that are interesting and fascinating from them. For them, excuse me. I chose this particular picture because this little boy, he is dressed up like Mario and he is really excited about what looks to be a cheese puff. Whereas the little girl has something else going on in her hand that she looks like that she could absolutely care less. So when you're writing your children's book, after you've chosen your topic, it's important that you really think through what is their attention span of your target audience. What is their reading level that's going to be expected? Are they expected to be an early reader that they can read it by themselves? Are they going to need help? Is this going to be something that an adult is reading to a child? And then most importantly, and lastly, the area of interest and fascination. What is that purpose? What is it going to be? So I told you guys that I was going to share a bit about my experience with choosing and writing my own children's books. So here is my snafu. If you look on the right side of the screen, I have a copy of the text from Zoe's Bun. Zoe had big curly hair, had a fun, carefree personality, all its own, just like her. That was it, right? That first book was super simple. And the second book, I was like, ooh, I'm going to go deeper because she's a little bit older. And then I came up, this is an actual page from the book, guys, with all of this text. I was like, I'm going to throw some color on the background and I'm going to put this paragraph on here. And the truth be told, who was I thinking about? Now, in my mind, I said, I'm writing this book for Zoe and other kids that are transitioning from being only children to becoming older siblings, right? So I'm thinking that I'm doing this great job explaining stuff. I read the book one time to my husband and he was like, that's a little long. So I chopped it down, took out some of the details, right? We get to a book signing that I was going to do. And I was like, hey, Zoe, which book would you like to start with? You know, do you want to choose one? Do you want to read one? And in the middle, she said, you know, Mom, Zoe Gets a Brother is really long. So I don't think I want to read that book anymore. What? First of all, we're in public, right? And then could you imagine that I'm thinking that I've written this masterpiece of a children's book that the child didn't really want to read? Now, I will say this, children are going to be very honest with you. And in that case, she was super honest. And she was like, Now, I did not ask Zoe. I didn't ask her what she thought of the book before I put it out because I was trying to surprise her. And again, I was doing this great job in my mind. And then at the end, it turned out that I was the person that had to kind of laugh at myself, right? All right. So learn from my mistake and make sure that you are just really kind of choosing and working with the audience that you have in mind and reaching out to them. All right. So we have talked about how to choose the topic for your book, your topic and the reason for writing it. We've even talked about looking at your audience. The next thing you want to do is choose your style. There's so many styles of children's books. There's one, I'm sure, that's as unique as the children and the people that you're hoping to reach that will be reading them. So your style should match your audience. Again, going back, I had this book that I thought was going to be great for my 5-year-old daughter. Turned out that she couldn't read it by herself. Not only could she not read it by herself, but she thought that it was long. So just remember that different styles reach different children, okay? Different styles are going to serve different purposes when you're writing your book. So as you move forward with writing your children's book, I want you to think about or think through, envision the style of your book. Is it going to be poetic or is it going to be prose? Is it just going to be regular language? Are you going to rhyme? That first book that I told you guys about that I never published called Zoe's Dance, it was a rhyming book. It was written as a poem and it rhymed and it had a little pity pat feel. But at the same time, my daughter was 2. So that was the sort of thing that was working for her at that time. Is the book style that you're looking at, are you envisioning something that's simplistic? Zoe's Bond was a very simplistic book. I wrote it for my daughter and other little girls like her. I wanted her to be able to read it by herself. There are other books that I have seen that have maybe 1 or 2 words per page. There are other books that I've seen that has been 1 sentence has made up an entire book. So is the book simplistic? Is the book trendy? As I told you guys, for Zoe's Bun, when I released that, there was quite a bit of information and books that were coming out that were about natural hair. There was Happy Hair that came out. There was I Love My Hair. Then there was Cool Cuts. So it was a big trend to write a book about hair, particularly in the children's book space. So is the book that you're thinking about, is it trendy? Right now, there is a big opening for books for boys of color, for diverse books. There is a need for those books. That is the trend right now. People are writing those books. Is the style of your book going to be tense? Is it a mystery? Is it full of suspense? Is it a tense book that is tackling a hard topic? Is it talking about sex with children? Is it talking about grief and the loss of a loved one? Is it talking about something that's hard to talk about, like bullying? Is it talking about mental illness? There are a number of children's books that have a tense feel to them. And then most importantly, is it just a picture book? Maybe the style of your book is simple, right? Maybe it's just pictures. Some books don't have words at all, and that's all I've got to say about that. All right, so I want you to choose your style with your audience in mind. The best way to do this is, number 1, to read books. And number 2, ask readers. So read children's books, go to the library, read those books, look at them. How are they written? What books are similar to what you have in mind? What books are totally opposite from what you are thinking about? And then ask your readers. Ask a child, because again, children are going to be the most candid and honest individuals if you ask them for their feedback, right? So your style to be based on your audience and your purpose of your book, okay? Again, you may be writing a picture book, just a plain picture book that deals with the emotions. And so you want your style to, the pictures, you don't want the pictures necessarily to be scary if you're looking to tap into the emotions of a 3 or 4-year-old, okay? So read the books and ask readers. Ask readers what they want to see. Get you a target group or a beta group together to look and tell you what the things are that they like. So next, let's talk a little bit about choosing your book size and layout. Just like your book style come in so many choices and options, your books are going to come in so many sizes and layouts. Again, they are just as unique as the children and the population that you're serving. So as you guys may have noticed through the course of this, I'm just getting some questions in for you to have in mind as you're writing your children's book. As you're writing it, it's important to ask yourself these questions. So this next one is, what is your book like in hand? All right. You want to think about what you want your book to do or accomplish. Do you want your book to be hardcover or softcover? Is your book large? Is it small? Is your book focused on the words? Is your book focused on the pictures? What's most important? So when someone has your book in hand, what is it like? Okay. Is your book going to become a favorite book that fits in small book bags and backpacks and baby bags that can be taken everywhere? Or is it one of those giant books that a teacher can sit on the easel in front of her class for a read aloud where even the kid in the back of the classroom can see it? All right. So when you're thinking through your book size and your layout, these are some of the things that you want to think about. If it's a hardcover book, is it one of those tiny books that can be tucked in a mom's purse to take for the kid to read while they're, running errands? Is it a larger book that the kid is going to be really excited about sharing at show and tell? Is it, a soft cover book or one of those plastic books that a kid can put into the bathtub with them? And again, is it focused on words or pictures? So I want you, as you are writing your children's book, not just think about the words and what you're writing, but really to envision what your book is like in hand. All right. So let's talk a little bit more about choosing your book size. So children's books, we already know they come in many sizes. So I recommend choosing a standard industry sized book. All right. Unless, of course, it is meant to be one of those giant jumbo books, like I said, that a teacher is going to use and have at the front of the classroom on an easel, or it's going to be used for a presentation. When you are choosing your book size, it's important to think about the genre of your book, because different genres come different sizes. I personally have never seen a giant novel, right? I have not seen one of those big book novels. What's the function of your book? Is it a book, again, that's going to keep a kid busy while you're out and about, while mom is out and about? Is it a book that dad is going to read every night before the kid goes to sleep? So thinking about the function of the book. Is it a book that a teacher's going to read at the front of the classroom? Are the kids going to be complaining because they can't see? I can't see. I can't see the pictures. Trust me, kids do it, okay? The category of the book. Again, is it a board book? Is that one that a toddler can put in their hands? My son, he's one, and so board books are alive right now because they feel good when he's trying to itch his teeth, okay? And then thinking about your printing method. Are you writing and creating a children's book that you're going to have printed somewhere? Or are you going to be making copies and creating it and spiral binding it at home? Are you going to be at the Kinko's next door printing out your own pages, okay? So those books come in various sizes. I recommend choosing industry sizes so that you can keep your printing costs reasonable and available, which brings me to my next point. When you're choosing your book size, you have to think about paper choices. And we're going to get deeper into it a little bit in just a few minutes, but your paper choices may be limited by the size of your book. Typically, books are printed either with white paper or cream colored paper. If you have your heart set on cream colored paper, you have to keep in mind that some printing companies will limit the size of your book based on that type of paper, on your paper choice, okay, and the size of your book. So let's look really quickly at some standard industry sizes. These are known as your common book trim sizes: 5x8, 6x9, 7x7, 8x10, 10x8, 13x11, which is a pretty big book, and then 12x12. All right, so those are the most common book trim sizes. So anywhere you go, if you go on to 48hourbooks.com to print your book, you're typically going to find these sizes available. If you choose to go with one of the other self-publishing companies, or even just a company that boasts about their ability to print your books, very quickly, then your common book trim sizes are going to fall among these. I went with a square book. Mine is 8.5 by 8.5 because I wanted it to easily fit in a child's book bag as well as in their hands. But I wanted it to be large enough for them to see and enjoy the pictures and share it with a friend. So your book should fit in with sizing. I know, you want your book to stand out, but most self-publishing printing presses only offer standards. So they may offer other sizes for an upcharge, and again, it could limit your paper and ink choices. Most of the self-publishing outlets are print-on-demand services, which means that they print the book when someone orders it. And so even the availability through like Amazon and Barnes and Noble and things like that are print-on-demand services. So you want to choose a size that can be printed on demand. Nobody wants to wait on a book to come in from overseas when they have an event next weekend. Okay, let's just be honest. When you are looking and creating your book, you have to be very mindful of the size that you can get readily available and have. I have been caught in a situation where an extremely great vending opportunity has come up and I wasn't prepared and didn't have enough books for that opportunity. Had my book printing service been outsourced overseas, I wouldn't have gotten the books in time. But because I have standard book sizes, that I'm able to have that trim size printed in a number of outlets. Okay. Let's talk about choosing illustrations. As a children's book author, your biggest investment, aside from printing the actual books and your marketing, is going to be in the space of illustration. Okay? Think through what you want the illustration process and the relationship to look like. Okay? I did not do that because I didn't know to do that when I published my book last year. So at the beginning, when I first started out, I reached out to someone to assist me with the publication of my first book, and I hadn't even thought about, the process of working with someone on creating artwork for my book, or what that relationship would look like. And so as a result, I published 2 books with an illustrator that I had never met. What? Okay, yeah, I know. Close your mouth. My mouth is open too when I think back on it. Like what, I never even had a conversation with the illustrator of the book. I just trusted that it would work out. All right, so here's your next question. What does your book look like? What does your book art look like? My screen is moving a little slower than I'm talking, so I'm going to keep talking. So my first 2 books, as I mentioned, I worked with an illustrator that I had never met. We handled everything via email. Okay, so my pictures for those books were digitized. All right. When you are looking at your books and thinking through your book art, is it real photography? Are you using other pictures? Are they hand drawn? Are they digitally crafted? Are they painted? Are the colors vibrant or muted? Did you choose to use silhouettes? Do you want your figures to be very distinctive? Do you want things to be very detailed? Or do you want them to be abstract? All right. So when I was working on my first 2 books, I realized that I have a very subjective view of hands. I did not know that I had a hang up on hands. Let me tell you, sometimes it can be very difficult to convey your idea, what you see in your mind, to someone else. So it's important that as you're going through the illustration process that you think through, what do you want this to look like? Do you plan on sending your entire manuscript to a stranger that says that they're an artist and hoping that the book comes out the way that you want it to? Are you going to send an outline for the details? Okay, so what is that process going to look like? There will be revisions that are required. How are you going to handle those revisions? How are you going to convey? Because illustrators are artists, just like you as a writer are probably very sensitive about your work. Illustrators can be the same way. So how are you going to convey, hey, I need this change made because these hands still aren't right, okay? And that was something that I struggled with. How do I get what I see in my mind, what I've kind of sketched out with my terrible drawing and stick figures, how do I convey that to someone else and it come out being as detailed and as intricate as I wanted? How much reign are you looking to give to your illustrator? Are you looking to give your illustrator free reign? So the third time that I went to the publication process for children's books, I worked with a local artist that I could sit down with so that I could look him in his eye face to face and say, all right, hey, bro, listen, this is what I'm looking to accomplish. This is what I'm hoping to do. These are some examples of the work that I love. These are some examples of the work that I hate, okay? And this is what I want to do. And I was able to give him just a quick outline of the images and then let him go for it. And from that process, then to go back and say, hey, listen, I really like this. Can we make this tweak or make this change? Or, hey, not necessarily a fan of this. How can we make this better without it being offensive to him? So thinking through, what does your book art look like? Just wanted to take a quick moment and show you some of the choices that you may be looking at. All right, so it's some examples of illustration types. So the larger picture, I have a bunch of different illustrations of covers and designs. You'll see some look very digital, some look cartoony, others look like, okay, that's kind of more geared towards the emoji type. And then on the right side of the book, I even have images from my 3 books. So you can see that one was a digital image that the illustrator created basically from scratch, from her own mind. The middle was I actually sent in an image and had a digital image of that created. And then the bottom image from Zachary Goes to School is actually a hand-drawn image. And so thinking, again, what is most important in your book? Is it the illustration? Is it the picture and the image? Or is it the word? Is it what's written? Are those the things that are most important? So when you're thinking about your illustration, those are the types of things that you want to think about. Do you want your book to have more of a comic book feel? Do you want your book to feel very real for your reader? All right, so a few more examples. There is a book, one of the books that I love is Peter's Chair. And it is the one that has the kid, his hands are upraised, and there's the mom in the floral dress. And so these are actually from paintings, right? And so you can notice that you can't really see all of the details. It's not all intricate. When you get up, you can't see the strands of mom's hair when you get close to it. And then I have an image from Cool Cuts, I'm sorry, not Cool Hair, Cool Cuts. And the image is just very emoji-like. There aren't a lot of details to the kid's eyes or anything like that. And if you look on one side, there's a page that looks just like a piece of paper with some writing on it. And then there's the image of the little boy in the bed, and that's a painted one, and it's very muted in the colors, but it's still a very striking image. And when you're looking at it very closely, you can see quite a bit of fine detail. And then there, of course, MLK Day is coming up. And so I have 2 there, and one of them looks like it's painted, where the other one looks like it's drawn with a little bit more digital elements to it. And then in that bottom left-hand corner, I don't know if you guys can see it, but it's the book with no pictures. Yep, that's right. It's a book with no pictures. So it is a children's book that they chose to move forward without any pictures at all. Instead, the illustration can be found in the text. They used various colored text throughout the book, as well as different sizes and fonts to convey their message. So the entire book is just like that. My daughter loves it because we get to laugh, and it's about how you read the book out loud, right? I'm a monkey who taught myself to read, and now I'm reading you this book with my monkey mouth and my monkey voice, right? So then my readers are able to create the picture in their mind. Yes, I am just that silly. So I want you to think about your illustration type, all right? What do you want to go with for writing your children's book? All right? And then when you write your book, how is the art going to be displayed? Where are the words? Are they layered on top of the pictures? Are they put below the pictures that you have? Are any of your images spread across multiple pages? Now, in all three of my books, I use text on one side and then pictures on the separate pages. I did this for a couple of reasons. Number one, for read aloud purposes, because again, kids are complaining, I can't see the picture. And so if I have my hand that's on the page with the text, my hand isn't covering up the picture on the other side. And then also for budgeting purposes, because as I said, illustration is going to be probably your bulk of the investment aside from actual books and the marketing piece. So it was cheaper for me to have 10 images drawn instead of 25, all right? So then I'm gonna take my 10 images and I'm gonna put 10 pages of text and boom, I got a 20-page book, all right? And then in the second book, I told you guys that I played around with adding color behind the text for more interest of the reading, for the reader. And then it turned out that, the book was just too long. And then for my third book, The Zachary Goes to School, I really just wanted the book to be about the imagery, and it had to be strong. Yes, the words were important, but I was dead set on making sure that the kids that were reading my book saw themselves, saw people that they read. And so the illustrator, Jonathan Barnhill, worked with me to craft even the smallest details down to what was the hair texture like. Does the hair texture look real enough for a kid to say, hey, that kid's hair looks like mine? All right, so here's some more of those images. Again, is your text, is it going to be above the image? Is it going to be below the image? Is it going to be split? On the middle picture there, it's a koala book that the name is escaping me right now, but they had full page images and then just kind of dropped in a little bit of cloud blur before laying their text on top. The Colors of Us, which is the top picture with the two little girls, they just included a thin little strip at the bottom that included the words, the text there. And then Little Miss Dancy Pants, which is the bottom left-hand image, you can see they kind of drew like the curtain. So they had the book of what was happening, the pictures of what was happening in the book at the top, drew a little curtain, and then put the words down on the curtain portion. And as I shared with you, I chose to do my book with the image on the side and then the text on the other side. And then Madam Hardy's book, The Orange Zebra, she had all of her text across the top and then her images blocked off. All right, so I'm down to just a few minutes. I know that this is probably the part where you guys want to hear the most about, and it's about the self-publishing process. So let's talk about what self-publishing really is. All right, so self-publishing is publishing independently. You own the entire process at your own expense. Yes, I underlined at your own expense because you are paying for everything. If you were to go with a larger publishing house and say apply to have your book featured maybe with a Penguin or a Random House or a Scholastic, there are some portions of your publication process that they're going to cover for you as a writer on their label. However, with self-publishing, you're going to publish independently. You're going to own the entire process at your own expense. So basically, you're an independent author who owns the process and the outcome. All right, so that's book sales, book flops, books going viral. You own the entire process from start to finish when you self-publish. Now, of course, there are some things that I want you to consider when you are self-publishing. There are certainly some benefits of self-publishing. First and foremost, you control the entire process, all right? The process can be as long or as short as you need it to be. So it can be a fast process. It can take several months. But when I wrote Zoe's Bond, I wrote it and contacted the publisher that I worked with for my independent publishing. I wrote it and started the process January 27th or 28th. And the book was in hand, like in print, like here we go on March the 17th. That's when I revealed it to the world. So it was pretty quick. And then there was the piece, the changes can be made, right? The changes can be made when you self-publish. Mistakes will be made. Hear me when I say this. Mistakes will be made when you publish your book. whether they were intentional, maybe you just weren't paying attention, maybe whatever the case may be. The beauty of self-publishing is that changes can easily be made. So I should have put easily. Changes can usually easily be made. So that's another benefit of self-publishing. All right, so here's another true story. I released, I don't know if it was Zoe's Bun or Zoe Gets a Brother, but I got an email from a reader and I was really excited because I was like, fan mail, let's go. And so the letter starts out really nice. It's like, congratulations, Danielle, on pursuing your dreams. This is great. The images are beautiful. Hey, by the way, I hope you don't mind me listing out a few mistakes that I found because back in the 80s, I was a copy editor. And the person proceeded to list out all of the, they were minute details, but of course, to someone that was a copy editor professionally for 20 years of their life, of course, the minor details were going to stand out. And I was able to, after I picked up my feelings off the floor, I was able to go in and very quickly make those changes. And so all of the people that got the book from there on out didn't have any mistakes in there, right? They didn't have that, but I was able to make those changes very quickly without it being a big deal and not having a lot of hoops to jump through. All right, and then challenges. Some of the challenges that I want you to consider when self-publishing is that self-publishing can be expensive because, again, you are owning the entire process. You are paying for the illustration. You are paying, I don't know if you guys know this, but when you are getting books and you're creating books, you have to purchase your own books. So in order to have books to go sell at church or to sell at school or to sell wherever, you have to purchase those books first. All right. Another challenge is that mistakes will be made. I've already told you this, and it can be a steep learning curve. One of the processes that I went through, I realized that I had made some mistakes, and with the company, I ended up having to pay for the changes that I needed to make in those mistakes. Mistakes are okay. It's just a challenge. You have to have a tough skin to be able to deal with it. All right. And then it's harder to enter mainstream with self-published books than it is with a book that is backed by Scholastic. Okay. So those are the challenges that you're going to face, specifically with libraries, various institutions, and things like that. It is going to be a little bit harder because nobody knows your name or nobody knows your publishing company. My personal publishing company is Evie Danny Books. You guys know Evie Danny Books because you've seen my books or you know me. But if I am just to send a cold letter to a school and say, hey, I really want you guys to purchase copies of my books to keep in your school library, it's a little bit harder than if they get a letter that has my book that has the backing of Scholastic. So those are just some of the challenges, but of course there are benefits and challenges that are going to come with any undertaking or any endeavor that you decide to move forward with. Okay. Now, there are a number of self-publishing outlets that are out there. All right, Create Space, Ingram Spark, Lulu, and then I just recently learned about Blurb are some of the ones that you probably hear of. And when you Google self-publishing, these are the ones that are going to come out. Then there are also some self-publishing through what's called or known as vanity press. So those are going to be like your Author House, your Book Baby, Dog Ears, Zilbrus. Tate Publishing used to be one, but they went under in 2017. So there are a number of self-publishing outlets. I personally have used Create Space, Ingram Spark, and Author House. All right, so the difference between truly self-publishing and some of the vanity presses is that there are some elements that you are not in control of. So while Author House, yes, is a self-publishing agency, there's some things that you're not going to be in control of. So for instance, I worked with them and had my cover design done through them. And the book that I published was back in 2014. Actually just got to the actual image, like having the cover image of my own, like a high resolution copy of it. There are more expensive upfront costs with the vanity press. So they have those packages that are like $5.99 or $1,800 or $3,000 that are going to cover all of these various things. So that is going to be a bit more expensive upfront than, say, if you go through a true self-publishing agency such as Create Space or Ingram Spark. Create Space, there are no fees that are associated with it except for the printing of your books, but to go in and set up a title, there's no fee for that. I've done that process a few different times and found it to be very easy to navigate. I have also used Ingram Spark. There is a fee to set up your title, but they also have some additional benefits in terms of how your book can be marketed, such as purchasing just a little bit of an extra marketing upcharge where they will send it to all of the people that subscribe to their magazine, to their outlets, okay? My experience with them has been a little bit longer in terms of finishing and completing my book than it has been with CreateSpace. So I use them for one of my books. And while it's available through like Amazon and Barnes and Noble and things like that, the actual hard copies I do not have in hand yet. Again, my personal experience. However, I know authors that have had true success with all of these various outlets. CreateSpace, Ingram Spark, Lulu. I had a client that tested out Lulu last week, and she was like, Danielle, I really want to put out this book. I think she actually did a calendar, and she started on Monday, and I think the calendar was available for download on like Wednesday through Lulu. I have not checked out Blurb. They are next on my list to hit and kind of see what that process looks like. So again, I'm in this space with you, just kind of figuring it out, but sharing that you have to find what works for you. My recommendation is to really do your research and then work with what works for you. Again, I have found CreateSpace to be the lowest cost and the easiest to move forward with. All right, so the basic things that you're going to need to self-publish: an ISBN, a copyright, cover art, metadata, and a plan for sales. All right, so there are mixed perspectives on whether or not indie authors need ISBNs. I choose not to debate on this. My recommendation is yes, absolutely, you need an ISBN. Why do you need an ISBN? Because it is a book identifier. All right, ISBN is basically like a social security number for your book. Do you need one as an independent author? In some cases, no. I choose to think big. One day, my books will be in libraries. My books will be used in various institutions. Maybe your book is going to be used at the collegiate level. They won't purchase books without ISBN. All right, so it's important to have an ISBN. When you go to these self-publishing spaces, a lot of them will say, hey, we include ISBN with the purchase of your package, or CreateSpace has ISBNs available. Let me tell you this, Danielle Butler buys her own ISBNs through Bowker. That's BOWKER. All right, I buy my own. Now, there are free ones that are available. Okay, there are $99 ones that are available through whoever you are publishing and printing through. I buy my own. Why? Because it's registered to me. When you look up the ISBN numbers for any of my books, it's mine. All of the rights are mine. I did it not just for myself, but later on when I'm gone, I want my kids to be able to access it. You know what? This is registered under my mother's name, not under some agency. Okay? It's not a bulk ISBN that's assigned to say, you know, ... .com publishing house or anything like that. Okay? Copyright. Yes, a copyright is in effect as soon as you have written the work. Once you create it, it is technically copywritten by you. However, if you are planning any sort of legal action in the space of copyright, like for copyright infringement, your copyright must have been filed with the Library of Congress, right? So that can be done online. And this information that I'm putting out, I know I'm going quickly because we're getting towards the end of our time. This information is available if you check out my website, and I'll give it at the end, but I do have it all written down for you. But the copyright can be filed online. It's just a registration. It's not you applying for a copyright again, because your copyright is in effect as soon as you write your book. All right. When you self-publish, you need cover art. We talked about this, children's books. All right. Your art is going to be what is the difference between your cover art is the difference between that kid picking up that book and saying, I have to have it, I have to take it home, and that mom saying, we're going to leave that one on the shelf. Okay. Then metadata is the basic details that you're going to be asked often about your book. When you register your ISBN, it's going to be asked. When you are printing your books, it's going to be asked. When people Google your book, this is information that they come across, all right? So you want to be as consistent and strategic as possible for your audience target and your keywords. So your metadata includes your title, any subtitles, the author, the genre, age recommendations, a summary of your book, the keywords. So keywords that I use for Zoe's Bun include natural hair, diverse books, girls, things like that. And then an author bio. So your metadata includes all of that: your title, your subtitle, your author information, genre, age recommendations, a summary, keywords, author bio. And then the most important thing, again, when you're self-publishing, is having a plan for sales. There's nothing like having a box full of unsold books sitting in your living room collecting dust. You're losing money. So you need to have a plan for how you're going to sell those books, okay? Have a plan for how you're going to sell those books. So those are the basic things that you're going to need to self-publish: ISBN, copyright registration, your cover art. I recommend going with professional to have your cover art done, your metadata, which is going to be that basic information, and then a plan for how you're going to sell those books. Remember, you usually get what you pay for, okay? And that could be good or bad. That can go really, really well, or it can go really, really bad. I paid a lot of money to publish my first book through Author House because I thought that everything came with it. Well, everything included, like the cover and the layout, okay, didn't include all of the books that I would need to sell because I would later have to buy them. It didn't include a marketing plan. And as a result, I have not even made back my investment in that book. But everything looks really nice, so I got what I paid for in that case. So remember, you really do get what you pay for, and it can go positively or negatively. As we wrap up, I want to talk about just a few key takeaways that I hope that you've gotten from today. And that's number one, creating the story that your audience wants to read. All right, so think very clearly about the topic that you're choosing. What the images look like. Count the cost, and that's not just the monetary cost, but the cost of legwork that it's going to take you for promoting your book. Cost of making sure that your book is what your audience wants to read. Because if you write a book with this 5-year-old audience in mind, and then it turns out that your book is really for 12-year-olds, that's going to cost you some sales if you're marketing in the wrong space. Know that mistakes will likely be made. I've shared some of mine with you, but it's important to get out there anyway. It is January 2018. I want you to write your book this year. I want you to put it out this year. Find and work what works for you. Everybody's process is going to vary a little bit, but once you find your way, make sure that you work it. Your process may not look quite like mine. The considerations are going to be the same, yes, but how you apply that is going to differ. Maybe there's a full-time job that you currently have, so you're going to be working on a different time frame than someone that is retired and is writing their children's book throughout the day and has access to daytime resources. But most importantly, I hope that you know that you can do it this year. Like I said, I did it 3 times last year, so you can do it. I know that we probably have some questions. We're down to like 1 minute. Hopefully I've answered the bulk of your questions, but please, 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 if I did not cover it in our time today, feel free to shoot me an email at eviedanybooks@gmail.com. I also have some questions for you, so please take a brief moment to complete the survey that's going to come your way this afternoon. You should see that come into your email box. So please, 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 I hope that you take a moment because I want your feedback. Your feedback is essential on today's webinar. And then really quickly, a commercial plug. I mentioned to you that some of the resources and information is already written down. So I wrote my book, Now What? The checklist is available for free download on my website, daniellebutler.com. I wrote my book, Now What? Is an ebook that goes more in depth on that process of copywriting and ISBN. As well as just some of the other pieces of self-publishing. Adventures of Zoe and Zachary book series is available, as well as my book Mood Swing, Thoughts and Prayers for the Postpartum Mom. I also offer strategy planning sessions, self-publishing advisement, and writing coaching. So whether you are at the beginning of the process or in the middle, I want to make sure that I can partner with you. So those services are available as well. So please, please, please connect with me. I'm on social media, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at EvieDannyB. EvieDannyBooks@gmail.com and edaniellebutler.com. The hour has come very quickly. I hope that you all have learned something, and I appreciate you joining me. So thank you so, so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you.